Wait, so is this like a Jesus related thing, like a religious minister, or like one of those people that censors speech?
I wish
But not like a governmental minister, like a Christian minister sort of thing.
Oh, all right. God bless you, sir. Good luck.
Thanks.
How did you become a minister or a digital minister?
Well, I mean, honestly, I was sort of like called. The mod team needed someone, and I like come from a ministry background. I studied at 2 seminary schools, so I was, kind of invited into it. Like I studied, but like studying alone doesn't necessarily make you a minister. But I minister pretty much exclusively to the DankChristianMemes subreddit, which has all kinds of different Christians and all kinds of different non-Christians, and that's
I get it now.
I really like.
Yeah, nice. How's it going so far?
It's been going good. When I first started, the subreddit was actually shut down. I think around the time that George Floyd was murdered and everything went down around that. I guess the mod team wasn't prepared for all the drums that came from that.
Nice. Well, I'm glad to see that you revived it, or it rose up from the grave.
Yeah. Why not a little resurrection action, right?
Resurrection.
We were down for a while, so it's been more than a year that we've been back. So that's been good, and our auto mod is much better than it was. I think that makes a big difference.
Oh, very nice. Well, keep it going. I'm sure. Well, I'm hoping that it doesn't die off again or anything.
I mean, our numbers have stayed pretty stable. We have 800,000 followers, and like sometimes it would be cool to have like a million. But that would be like kind of a lot of people, and it could kind of like change the way the dynamic works. So I feel like right now,
never say never.
Yeah, well,
nice.
We'll see. We do a fundraiser every Lent. St. Jude has this thing where you can just go on their website and basically make a little fundraiser. Everyone gives directly to St. Jude, but it's a really cool thing. So we managed to raise $12,000 last year. Which is nice, for a meme subreddit, that was never designed for that. And with a bunch of our partners like Wholesome Memes, Judank, Rammy Memes, Pagan Memes, and the Satanic Temple of Reddit, who turned out to be great partners on the project.
Wait, there's a Satanic Temple of Reddit?
Yeah, it's not an official Satanic Temple, and they will make sure that you know that because they do not want to get sued. But they are a group of people that follow the Satanic Temple and believe in that. So like they're really big on fundraising and doing good works. So it was good to have them as a partner.
Oh, nice. But yeah, that's all I had to say then about that question and everything. I'm gonna go to work right now. I wish I had more questions to ask you, but all I can say is I hope it goes well for you and good luck.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Of course. Peace.
Nice. If anyone else has any questions, come on up, raise your hands. Oh, and I should look at comments now because I said I would. How did I get that biblically accurate angel avatar? So Reddit actually sells little avatars. They also, so the one I bought was $10. That's like the lowest cost. I think there's some that are like around 50 and some that are 100. And they are technically NFTs, so this is a confession. But they also give some away, surprisingly. So I don't know if that's a sign that the little program is struggling or not. I think they're trying to create a culture where people care about their little Reddit icon a little bit more, and then maybe people will be likely to spend money on it. But it's a meme. I couldn't resist. It was $10, and I accept that I may be rightly roasted for that. So I can come to terms with that. Digital minister must be the stupidest title I've ever heard this year. Okay. Well, I mean, that's not so bad. If it's the worst title you've ever heard, ever, there's got to be worse out there. But I can accept that you've heard plenty of titles this year, and that this is the worst one. I think that the name of it is more pragmatic than anything. That, you know, some digital ministers are like myself, and they spend a lot of time within a social media community or perhaps a set of communities. And there's other digital ministers that are really nuts and bolts people. They're going to help you get your live stream going. They're going to get you a good camera. They're going to be concerned about your audio, video, and making sure everything works. And, you know, those people have pretty good paying jobs when they find churches that are willing to pay them. But yeah, sure. Digital minister isn't a great title. I can accept this. I can live in that world. Oh, we got some people with their hands up. I'm very sorry. I don't think I'm going to host from the app. It doesn't seem very stable. Hi, introduce yourself and ask any questions you might want to ask.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for approving me here.
Yeah, thanks for coming by.
Hey, yeah, I actually have I used to be an analog minister about 20 years ago.
I've never heard that, but that makes sense. Analog minister.
Yeah. You're a digital one. I used to be an analog one, but yeah, I mean, I just wanted to stop on and say hi. I thought it was pretty cool. I really I have a lot of fun in this subreddit. Mostly a lurker, though. I don't really post anything, but man, I love how everybody can kind of get along and agree to laugh at some things, and I don't know, it makes for a great spirit of a sub.
Yeah, thanks. We do our best. I don't know if today is the best example. We've got a lot of spirited discussion around debt today, so I don't think we're quite as low key today as we might be other days. But yeah, overall, we try to have a culture of mutual respect, and, you know, hopefully all the joking is in good fun more than, you know, causing trouble with others.
It goes a long way just to have that respect. You know, I think that honor amongst, you know, as kind of a highest priority means that it's more important to maintain the relationship and keep the relationship than to be right. And I guess that's kind of the thing that really helps people out in the long run. Kind of trying to focus on that personally is kind of a life mission. But yeah, I'm honestly actually in Argentina, and I had no idea what was going on with the whole debt thing. I'm an American living in Argentina, but yeah, just now that you mentioned, I'm going to kind of take a look.
So as an American living in Argentina, how do you feel about the term expatriate? It makes, to me, it sounds like you should be in like some sort of action movie.
I'm either a patriot or an expatriate. That's one way to look at it. That's kind of how people use it. I mean, the context, I think, is expatriated means I'm no longer in my nation of
right, and that's for any country, right? That's not specific to the United States.
Totally. And I think people kind of use the term as they understand it instead of what it actually means a lot. So kind of like you know, first world, second world, third world, stuff like that. People don't really know the context of that, so they use expatriate the same way. People don't call it; they just call me gringo or Yankee here. So I never hear the word expatriate.
Nice. Can I ask you a question? Like, so someone asked me how I, you know, sort of became a digital minister. Can you talk about, you know, your process for becoming a minister and how that is in your tradition and how that worked out for you?
Totally. Born and raised in a non-denominational evangelical church upbringing, and it was kind of always something that I kind of wanted to do. I liked helping people out. So as a young guy out of high school, I really didn't have a lot of direction. So I decided to go down to South America with an organization called Youth with a Mission. So I was down in Bolivia for about 4 years. And so I just became kind of a, you know, on the road type minister, you know, pastoring people in communities, you know, taking the Bible in, also helping out with teaching people to read and helping out with water filtration projects and stuff like that. So it was really hands-on as well as kind of spiritual well-being. So all kinds of well-being was the focus. And then as a pastor, it's really enriching. I really learned to appreciate people and really learned a lot about grace and in that time. But it was mostly, because the deeper my relationship got with God, the more I wanted to represent him.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. I've tried to learn more about the evangelical tradition. It's not where I'm from, but I'm a strong believer that when we find things we can work on together, we can become a little something better than the sum of our parts. And I've seen
Absolutely.
The sort of work you're talking about really unite folks, and that's nice. Isn't it nice when folks get along on something
It's
good?
enriching. I survived on $100 a month, living in what most would consider abject poverty, but with the generosity of the people, that it totally supersedes our perspective of what poverty means, because we can be rich but still be poor relationally, and so I just feel like helping people out gives an enrichment to life that a lot of people haven't experienced before.
Well, yeah, and when you're working with those who are in poverty, how much can you say you're helping if you haven't gotten your hands dirty? So, and I think that's really,
and words are
really
cheap
awesome.
too, aren't they?
Yeah, real affordable.
Yeah, exactly. Real affordable. Fire sale on words right now.
Well, thanks for joining our impromptu session. I had absolutely zero planning behind this. Do any of you I see we have two other folks help? I'm a dog. We want to assist you. And EB, you guys want to introduce yourselves, ask a question?
Yeah, so first of all, with the worst title you've ever heard of, it immediately reminded me of Jack Sparrow, where he says, "But you have heard of me." So hey, people know that this exists now. I didn't know it existed. So that's a
great point. Great, thank you for that. It is a terrible title, but you have heard of the title.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I was curious is, what does that mean to be a digital minister? What type of ministry opportunities have you seen? And also, a third question, I'm going to let you just run with this, but have you seen how people that are digital ministers have utilized that to speak to unreached people groups that haven't had access to the gospel, maybe through different subreddits? I'm assuming it's mainly probably, U.S. People in your subreddit, but yeah.
Well, you have. I heard three great questions, but I wasn't able to retain them all. So give them to me one at a time, and I'll do my best to be concise so I can get to them all.
Okay. So, first of all, what is a digital minister? 2, what kind of opportunities do you have for ministry as a digital minister?
Let's start with the first one.
Yeah.
So what is a digital minister? Great. Sorry, my brain is small, so I gotta take it bite-sized. So a digital minister is a person who's concerned with digital mediums, like the internet in general, like social media in general. Or so when it comes to pragmatic, right? If you're out in the world and you're seeing someone who calls himself a digital minister or has that on their resume somewhere, you're probably looking at one of two things. Occasionally both. One, and I think the bit more prevalent right now, is the nuts and bolts digital minister who is supporting a church or a group of churches and maybe on their payroll, or he may be contracted out in a way. But he's going to be more concerned with nuts and bolts, audio, video. Do you have a good camera? And presenting that online. Now, a lot of those digital ministers stop there. There are others who will come to the other side of the fence where it's like, okay, we have content. What do we do with it? So I think there's a lot of ministers who are out there putting their sermons online, trying to find social media. I know that Christian TikTok is a thing. I don't know much more about it. I also know that there's a lot of ministers that walk the line who are actually authors and professors. And what they try to do, and what book companies really pressure them to do, is to have some sort of social media following, especially Twitter, because it makes book publishers feel more confident that Christian or theology books, which are quite niche, will have good sales. So those are sort of the three. You have the nuts and bolts. You have the person who's like myself, really focused on digital presence, community building online. And then you have others that sort of walk the line, especially when they need to. There's no shortage of ministers on Twitter, and many of them have, especially for a Christian influencer, pretty considerable followings. So did I get question 1? Did I answer the question?
Yeah, question 1, check.
Okay. Check question 2. Bring it on.
All right. So what kind of ministry opportunities do you have through being a digital minister for you specifically? Like what opportunities have you seen? Like what fruit have you seen from being a presence online, hopefully to draw people to Jesus?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I do more than necessarily drawing people to Jesus is bringing people to a table where everyone feels comfortable and willing to participate with their faith, and sort of like a free market of ideas. So I think like DankChristianMemes is a great example, because I think the atheists and agnostics and others, because there's a lot of other titles that you could also have, that they appreciate that they're not being proselytized, that we as moderators aren't concerned with whether or not they turn to Jesus necessarily. But having an opportunity, especially for people who are interested in Christianity, to see not just one version. And I think that's something that's more important than people realize, that a lot of people, they're like, okay, I want to see what Jesus is like. And they go to their local church with good intentions, and they just might not like what they see in that church for any number of reasons. And that, may color their view. Whereas on DankChristianMemes, it's sort of like the sushi platter sampler, where you have a bunch of ideas, and oftentimes people are putting those ideas up against each other on particular issues. So, you'll have people who, come from an evangelical background, and, we'll talk about how, what they see or what they're discussing squares against their faith. While you'll also have, Catholics and various kinds of Protestants doing the same thing. So if you're shopping for a flavor of Christianity, I feel like that's something you can do when you have that sort of table where everyone feels comfortable. Other, than opportunities, like I said, I think I think most churches, parish churches, brick and mortar churches, would be very happy to have someone volunteering to help them with technology, and that those who can afford it might be willing to pay. And I think most churches can't afford it. So I think in terms of like job opportunities, they are few, but in terms of opportunities to do the work, they are many. And I will note that, while I am a minister, it is not a paid position. So I am not making money off of this job.
Sweet. Yeah, that was a good.
So did I get question number 2 answered as well?
Check. You got it.
All right. Question number 3.
Last one. I guess I was curious if you have heard stories of how maybe yourself or other digital ministers have been utilizing social media or like subreddits, maybe to reach out to people groups around the world that maybe have not heard the gospel. I didn't know if you've heard of anything like how that was.
Well, honestly, I feel like everyone's doing that in a little bit of ways, right? Like, I feel like how we do things on DankChristianMemes provides a nice point of interaction for people who either just never knew the church much outside of academic knowledge, or maybe are uncomfortable with church, but still interested, maybe want to tip their toe. I think so DankChristianMemes, as far as we can tell, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we are the largest religious-oriented sub on Reddit. I think the only one who would beat us would be our atheism, if you count them as a religious subreddit, and I think that would make a lot of them very mad if you did. So our atheism is definitely bigger than us, but I think they would tell you they are not a religious subreddit. So we're claiming the category. We'll see if anyone else wants to. But let me talk about some of the other subs on Reddit and what they're doing, and then if you remind me, I'll try to talk about stuff outside Reddit more. The first one that comes to mind for me is our Catholic memes, which is about what it sounds like. There's Catholic folks making memes about their faith. There's no shortage of ribbing Protestants. So if you are into that sort of thing, this is probably a sub for you. Their sub is pretty small. I don't think it gets a lot of attention, but they do brag a very robust Discord channel. I think they call it the Catholic Archdiocese of Discord. So yes, if you're interested in stuff, in Catholic stuff, and if you're interested in Discord, I think that's probably a spot you might want to check out. What else? There's a bunch of smaller subs that, struggle to really coalesce a community, because, how many Christian meme subs can, truly thrive. But there are, non-meme subs. I think there's, well, on the progressive side of things, you have radical Christian, and to a lesser, smaller extent, gay Christian. And I think that these groups are particularly skilled at reaching out to people who have been made to feel like there is no room in the church for them, and that these groups are, actively trying to make such a space. So I think that there's a lot of people who are looking for healing and find it there. But I don't know, I don't know that they're, would change their response under faith on a survey necessarily. So that's all I can think about for Reddit. I'm sorry if I was going through, I'm sure there's more. So I apologize to the other Christian subs out there that are, they're doing their thing. And, obviously we all have our differences, but, we're all on Reddit. So hopefully we can be friendly. Do you feel like I answered that question? And then if so, I'll move on to what some Christians are working on outside of Reddit.
Yeah, I think that has. And also if you have any input on this, just there's places like the 1040 window. There's different people groups around the whole world that it's a lot harder to get people there. But I'm wondering if there's opportunities within subreddits to reach those people, particularly like in India, Southeast Asia, like anywhere like that.
Yeah, I think that if you can find a place with cultural identity, that there is an opportunity there. But I think a problem that you're going to have, especially on Reddit, just because of what we sort of know about Reddit demographics a bit, is that they may be likely, to. So let's take, for example, India. I wouldn't be shocked to know that folks in the India subcontinent associate British people with Christianity, and that's probably a pretty negative association. So I think that if you wandered into that space unaware of that, you're probably going to have a hard time. Right. So I think there are definitely opportunities out there, but I think that, especially if you're not leading with a joke, and that is really what we try to do at DankChristianMemes, lead with a joke, maybe funny or not. But that if you don't have an awareness of what, the cultural sensitivities around faith, especially Christianity, on a cultural, historical level, if you don't know that, you're going to struggle. You may get banned depending on what sub you're on. Yes, they're definitely out there, but if anyone is going to, try to interact with these groups, they need to do so on the standards of that group. You need to play by their rules, and not just be, standing on the street corner screaming about Jesus. You need to, have some finesse, I would say. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and a side of it I didn't really think about. But it's a lot harder to get people to go to these places. But just curious about those opportunities if they were out there. Thanks for.
Well, and I think if it's in a physical sense, if it's in a digital sense, if it's in a cultural sense, you need to meet people where they are, which means you need to focus on them more than you focus on yourself, at least for a little while. And that's a worthwhile faithful practice, I would say.
Sweet, man. Well, thanks for answering those questions. I've got to run, but appreciate it. And thank you very much.
Thanks for asking. I appreciate it.
Brooklyn, you're right on the money there with India as a specific example. I mean, just
I went out on a limb, but
No,
I feel like it's a pretty safe bet.
you're right on the money, but it's like before you jump into a place like that, you gotta know your audience and read the room, right? Like, but a little deep dive, and just a fun fact: Saint Thomas, the Doubting Thomas, after Jesus' ministry on planet Earth, Thomas went to India, so that could be a cool history to plug into that predates the British Empire and might get around that stigma.
Yeah,
and I feel like there's a history of spreading the word, for lack of a better term. And we hear the good stories. I feel like there's a lot of unsuccessful stories that we just don't hear about. Like, I think that the historical record makes it seem a little easier than it is sometimes.
Hi, this is completely different from what you guys were talking about, but I'm just gonna, go ahead and shoot it. Last night I was reading Genesis 1, or I wasn't reading it. I was watching a video about it, and my mom and I were both watching it, and one of the questions that we had was, even though, as God made everything, it was all perfect, and then we were wondering, how did Satan how did Satan show up if it was all perfect and all?
Yeah. Well, and that's so. What I'm going to do first here is I'm going to point out that that's a really good, really important question. I actually wrote a paper on exactly that question. I wrote 2 papers on it for the same class with completely different positions because I found both arguments compelling. But this is called The Problems of Evil. In Genesis is a great place to start. God created the world, and then there's this suspicious acting snake sort of subverting God, and what's all that about? So the first thing I want to say is that is a notable conundrum. It is something that is valid to if you're a person of faith, struggle with, and if you're not a person of faith, be confused with or not get it. So I want to be sure that people understand that these are big, complicated issues, and this is what theologians write about, and this is what people like me take seminary classes about.
Men and angels are made in the image of God. What we mean by that is that they have rationality and free will as a component of what they are. So when you introduce free will into the equation, there the problem of evil arises. God didn't intend for men and angels to be slaves. He wants us to love him, and that means overcoming the temptation to reject him.
Okay, I get that. That's a really good analogy.
And there are many great explanations. I think that one's really good. It's the sort of thing that makes me say, hold on, let me read 6 books and then explain this really well.
That's
so thanks for jumping in.
Very high level.
Giving us what I think is a pretty common, if not belief, then consideration that a lot of Christians think about, if not hold as an actual belief.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. Well, that's all I had. So thank you for that.
Well, thanks for asking. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah.
Harry, did you want to ask any questions, or did you have something you wanted to talk about, or something you're working on you want to plug?
No, I'm just here to listen. The terminology of a digital minister piqued my interest. I'd love to learn more about what that is.
Yeah, it's been agreed that it's the worst title of this year, but it is a title you've heard of, so therefore maybe that's not so bad. Someone asked, how do the comments even work? Well, you commented 23 minutes ago, and I'm just reading it now. So the comments work slowly because I read slowly, and I'm sorry. That is the only comment. So I wanted to make sure Low Tide, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, thank you. And if you hear my 2-year-old in the background, I apologize. I just saw this on the top of the
How
Reddit
dare
page.
you have a child? I mean, I just want to call you out for that right here. What were you thinking? No,
Well
I also
deserved.
have a kid. So, yeah, between kids and animals in my house, I think it's likely to interrupt me too.
Well, I appreciate the understanding. I was actually I had a question about indigenous people and their pathway to God. I wanted to know how. I'm trying to figure out how to word this question. Okay, for example, I live in Maine, and I was listening to a podcast of an Indian,
A fellow
the
New
Wabanaki.
Englander.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Are you from New England?
I am. I'm from southern New England, though.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, so there's a lot of indigenous culture up here. I was listening to a podcast from someone in the Wabanaki tribe, and he was talking about how Columbus brought religion to what is now Maine and to the indigenous people, and how there was a decree from the Pope or a decree from that time to basically enslave people who hate Christ and take over the land and the property. How were these people, these indigenous people from thousands of years ago, who didn't live in Jerusalem and Israel, they would live, they would die, they would live, they would die. Did they have a path to heaven? And did they have a connection to God without seeing the Bible? And I think that's the best way I can word it right now. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks. That's a really good question. I'm going to point to the Catholic Church here for a few reasons. The first reason being that the Pope recently met with a group of indigenous folks. I want to say Canada, but I'm not sure if that's right, so don't quote me. But there were definitely some headlines and some interesting photo ops of the Pope meeting with indigenous tribes to apologize for, some of the stuff that you were just describing. So yeah, that in terms of introductions to Christianity, that's got to be among the worst. That's got to be up there on the list. So I am sure the Pope has said something more comprehensive and conclusive than I would on this. So I'm, going to nod in that direction. The other thing I'm going to say, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is a part of Catholic doctrine, though it doesn't get discussed all that much, is that there is a general belief that by, holding in reverence God's creation, that you can, without necessarily knowing Christ and without necessarily knowing, Yahweh, I am the God of Abraham, that there is a path to righteousness and salvation. So I think that's in there somewhere in the Catholic doctrine. I'm sure I have not spoken to it well, so I apologize. And I think that there are plenty of folks outside of Catholicism who don't give it a lot of thought, but basically give it a free pass. I think there's a popular theology of the free pass. And I think that there's a counter theology of, no, we got to try to convert everybody because, their souls are on the line. And I think for folks who have that belief, it's I think it can become a troubling responsibility for them.
Yeah.
That was my attempt to sort of represent some of the diversity of opinions on that matter that exist in Christianity.
Yeah, without overstepping, I have a little background in this, and the doctrine is called invincible ignorance. The idea being that sin requires both the actual matter of a behavior and also the culpability of it. So the idea is that pre or non-Christian cultures may possess some degree of ignorance or non-knowledge of Christ that may make them invincible to some degree. And so we don't know the extent of God's mercy, and so it's largely inappropriate to us to presume who is saved and who is not. That's why the Catholic Church does not. What's up?
I just want to jump in. I know that there are a lot of Christians who believe that at the time of your death, you are seen by Christ. So I think for the Christians who believe that this is the opportunity for those who had never had any exposure to Christ to know Christ. And I've always thought that, if in someone's final moments they saw, Jesus, that they'd be like, oh, well, that's pretty convincing. Yeah. So.
Well, first, I really appreciate.
Interrupt there.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. So I talked. So I would say I come from more of like a perennial Buddhist perspective, but I talked to a Christian friend today, and he made some interesting points to me that that like kind of came together into maybe like a further confusion, which is why this kind of struck me, and I was like, I'll ask these guys. And what he told me was something that kind of made me see Christianity in a different way, coming from a more Buddhist perspective. So, like, as you guys probably know, nirvana in Buddhism is talked about as like an extinguishing of the flame. So if you have this flame of physicality, then it's putting out the physicality itself so that you can never return to physical planes of existence. And on one hand, that sounds nice, but also like it's interesting to think of the idea of that kind of satisfaction of the desires so that they never uprise again. But within this kind of world of like, within this world that is imbued with the artistry of life, that is like the full creation, not just the demiurge, but also Sophia in a sense. I know that a lot of Christians don't make that distinction as the Kabbalists do, but like that's kind of a way that I put it together. So what kind of like was like haunting me about this is that I got to thinking, it's like if the creator chose to create a world of physicality, then on some level they crave physicality, and in that sense, what separates them from like archons and demons? Like, is this just like a kind of, I guess, like higher level demonic activity, or what would you guys say to that? I want to get some input on that.
I don't come from a tradition that has much to say about demons, other than that, like, demons are subservient under the devil, which means they like don't really have much real power in most circumstances. I just want to answer a couple questions from comments before we carry on with your point of conversation, because I promised I would try to do better on comments. So
that's
someone said, how much do you make monthly? I don't make any money. This is a volunteer position, but it is nonetheless a job and a calling for me. So, and I also think that's good, because I know a lot of ministers, struggle with certain decisions because their pay and their family's well-being is on the line. So I'm thankfully able to sell my technology skills to public schools in order to make actual money. As I said before, a digital minister is a minister who's concerned with digital community and digital interactions regarding faith. The most common forms you'll find are those who are focused on content and community online, like myself. But there are also nuts and bolts digital ministers who are more concerned with capturing good video quality, recording your choir at their best, and they may work for multiple churches or have their own small business. There's a lot of different models for digital ministers to potentially follow, especially after the pandemic. So I'm sorry I cut. Is that all of them? What are your core beliefs and how do you come to believe them? I talked about this a little bit before. I call myself an ecumenical Christian. I believe that, Christians are at their best when we find what we can work on together and do that. I feel similarly about interfaith, that, religions, especially the Abrahamic religions that have quite a lot in common, we can do some really great work when we all work together. And that's been a core belief of mine for a very long time. What sin do I struggle with most? I struggle with reading comments and responding in a timely manner. I'm working on that. I also, as a clergy, I think it's hard to cultivate humility when you have to do egotistical things like, make a Reddit talk about yourself. So I think humility is a really important Christian value. And when you are a minister, you have to be aware of that extra, especially in the social media space where getting attention is a big part of the point. All right. Sorry about that. I want to give Bookhead an opportunity to introduce himself. And then Long Taylor, I want you to focus it down to a question for us because I know you're on a really big subject. And I want to make sure we actually answer your question. Bookhead, are you there?
I am here, yes. Hello.
You want to introduce yourself quick while we carry on with questions here?
Yeah. So I've been active in the subreddit for a while. I'm mostly a lurker. I haven't posted here. But what really, if we can move away from theology, I'm just wondering how difficult is it to cultivate this environment of sorry if it's a little noisy, I'm walking around, but how difficult is it to cultivate this environment of acceptance?
Well, I'm going to say that it's so difficult that it's not always an environment of acceptance. I think today, I said there's a lot of spirited debate on debt and what debt means. And I think that, some folks aren't respectful all the time. And as a moderator, I never want to pretend that, I'm actually capable of stopping people from being rude and disrespectful. Sure, people cross lines, they get their comments removed and they may get banned if they break a rule for real. But it's never perfect. But I think it's also knowing the difference between laughing with someone and laughing at them. There's a lot of jokes that come up about Jehovah's Witnesses. I think we had one today. And Mormons. No, we had one on Mormons and Latter-day Saints today. That, I think that aren't always in good fun. So I add a cultural note and I say that, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons are just as welcome at DankChristianMemes as everyone else, in case there was any doubt. So, the meme stands, but I try to remind everyone that, play nice because, we have folks of pretty much every tradition here. So, we want to make sure we're laughing together and not at each other. I also went to schools where there was more than just my kind of Christian there. And there, in some cases, in one of my seminary schools, I studied with Jewish folks and Muslim folks as well. So I think that for me has really done a lot for me to learn how to share space and also how to, cultivate my own tradition and my own experiences as well. Did I answer the question or did I just ramble?
No, that was actually a very good answer. Thank you.
Do you care? I'm sorry. Do you care if I thank you for the time? By the way, it's so cool. Do you care if I add to that question that I had? It just what I was really asking was and I'm poor way of articulating this is, yes, they may get a pass, right, because they don't have that inherent knowledge of the Bible. But do they have that same connection? You have leaders in the Wabanaki tribe who claimed a spiritual connection. Do you think that connection was genuine and not just in the Wabanaki tribe, but in all indigenous cultures, BC, before Christ, and that didn't have that contact? Did they have a genuine spiritual connection with God that could lead people? That's my question. I really appreciate you guys' time, by the way. Thank you.
I personally think so. I've seen a lot of different religious traditions. I've gotten to be a guest at a Hindu temple multiple times. I've seen people worship something that I don't believe in, but I still see their religious experience as genuine. And I think that I kind of take people at face value. If you tell me you're having an interaction with the divine, I believe you, so long as you're not doing something horrific in the next breath. I see no reason to doubt the authenticity and legitimacy of the faith of others. However, I won't pretend that's a majority view. I think there's a lot of Christians who are taught that if you are not Christian, if not a particular kind of Christian, then hell is a lot of people believe that hell is not particularly selective. Yes, I don't want to make. I want to make sure not to represent my view as the majority Christian view.
Yeah, there are varying views on this. The gods of the Gentiles are demons, so says the Bible.
Yes, and honestly, our tradition and cultural traditions around demons are often taken from other religions and other faiths. Honestly, I talk about this show way too much. Moon Knight, which came out semi-recently, without giving too much away, the demons inside the main characters' heads are sometimes religious deities, or motivated or empowered by religious deities. And I think that this, makes it resonant. And what's interesting is the main character in Moon Knight is Jewish. So it's if you want to look at it on a theology level, there's some really deep stuff there. You can write a lot of papers on it from a lot of different perspectives. But yes, culturally we do tend to do that. But I don't think there's a lot of Christians that would see the Buddha and think of him as a demon. And I don't think there's a lot of Christians who would see Hindu deities and think of them as demons, with the exception of Kali. Christians would see Kali and definitely think of them as a demon. So I think that in the past that's how it was, but I think we have a little better understanding of the polytheism of today. And I think we're a little more accepting than once we were, maybe.
Yeah, the first century saints were willing to die rather than show respect to any of the pagan pantheon.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about a pantheon is that it tends to have with a level of pluralism, which is why, Caesar really wanted people venerating him to sort of be a unifying deity over what could sometimes be a disparate pantheon. That, there were different interests, like, for instance, the Vestal Virgins and others that, were just following different religious deities and were not contributing to a unified religious experience. And I think that became very inconvenient for ancient Rome, and is probably a reason why they adapted Christianity when and how they did.
Could I ask that one question now? I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We should definitely come back.
You guys were having a good discussion, so I didn't want to interrupt that. But okay, so I've condensed it down into a question that's like a little bit more kind of workable. So I guess like my kind of big question as far as the core of Christianity goes, that's really like deciding the line between, my current views as, maybe Buddhist leaning and leaning towards Raja Yoga, and more of like just a conventional surrendering your heart to Christ approach, is that I still have like, in some ways, like the Buddhist kind of cosmology has really resonated with me. And that I'll end the preface at that. In the way that it's resonated with me is that I definitely associate physicality with a kind of like I'd use the word demonic, but it's not an accurate kind of
it sounds like you're talking
way of
about
communicating.
A distinction Paul made between what he would call spiritual desires, godly desires, and physical desires. And Paul actually, bumps up against Gnosticism a little bit when he does this. But I think that view of looking at there are things that are spiritual, move you closer to God, and there are things that are physical. But like when he said it was more like guttural, it was more, like gluttonous almost. So I don't know if that's the same thing. It sounds like you're describing a genuine experience of divinity or transcendence via physicality. Is that what you're saying?
So I guess like part of the way that I view things is through like kind of a Buddhist mode of examination, where like I do not experience a lot of things as having pleasure within themselves. I have like a kind of just a steady state of bliss where I sort of just like I feel like I have like a peculiar way of looking at physicality. So like in a way, like I guess like where that ties into the idea of like creation, and what kind of throws me off about this is that to me creation is it has to be a kind of craving for physicality, but also I guess like where that would put God would be like, how do you distinguish between God and an archon, which would be kind of like a force of nature which is bound to physicality as just kind of a vessel of power, of elemental power. So
I may be able to turn you on to something cool. You may want to look into the historical church's debate over Manichaeanism. Manichaeanism is the belief that. Yep, it's named after the teacher that first started spreading it. Manichean, Manichaean, the Manichaean heresy. There's a big debate. There's a big debate in the 400s or so about this, but basically a preacher was going around saying that everything physical is evil and everything spiritual is good. You know, this kind of dualism. And there was a huge church council about whether or not he had any kind of point or not. And the Christian community at the time came to the conclusion that that since God became matter, you know, that matter can't be all bad, right? So they came to the conclusion matter can be misused, definitely. But you know, the Buddhists similarly reject, you know, all attachment and all, you know, matter, sort of how the Manichaeists did. So just a little reading there about that vigorous debate that happened in the 400s may turn you on to some cool ideas.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very interesting suggestion.
There's also some Christians who would say that the physicality, the body, through Christ is reconciled and therefore redeemed, or at least redeemable. I don't know that all Christians would go there, but many would. I need to read comments because I said I would, guys, and I'm trying to keep to my word. They take a while to load sometimes. Right. Someone said, love the sub. Thank you so much. Thanks for showing us love. You get an upvote for that. Do you take attendance of your congregation if you know about how large is your flock? If at some point you find that your congregation has grown too large for you to minister effectively to each, do you plan to appoint deacons, deaconesses? Would you describe the ecclesiastical structure of your ministry at the present time? Wow. All right, let me see if I can run down the road on that. I consider attendance of my flock to be the number of members on DankChristianMemes. I think that's the best single number representation. And like any church, not all of them show up every day, but we are an everyday church. Like obviously, every subreddit is 24/7, and there are people talking, you know, in most time zones. So there's usually at least a couple comments flurrying about. But you know, many users will come in on the weekly, some on the monthly, and some are like, yo, it's Easter. This is what I'm here for. Goodbye. Easter's over. Like, much like any church, we do have folks they come by for Christmas and Easter, and they probably never touch the sub button. So, you know, I take that number. I said before, you know, 800,000 is a pretty good number. I sometimes wish it was 1 million, because humans like to watch numbers go up, and I'm no exception to that. Yeah, I try not to be so much concerned about the numbers as the broader impact that we have, because we are a sub that's large enough that if a post is successful enough, it can make its way up to our all, at least a little bit. So, you know, I think a lot of people are shooting for that when they post. You asked about ministering effectively. So I think one thing I've tried to use, like, this is a new form of potentially ministering. I don't know that anyone is looking forward to something I didn't plan, but it's a way of reaching out and being part of the community. Our Discord is really, I think, a better place for that sort of person to person. We do prayer requests on our Discord. We do religious conversations. A lot of the planning and discussion around our St. Jude fundraiser is done on Discord. So I would say that's but it's a modest Discord. I think we have 250 members over there. So I would say that that's the other number. I would be happy to have deacons and deaconesses, but I think most folks don't have time for that. I will say that I'd love to host these more often, but I'm looking for co-hosts. So if you're interested in being a co-host, if you'd like to be a guest on the weekly podcast I do on Wednesdays, that would be great. I'm looking for collaborators. So I never turn down someone who wants to work on something. How would you describe your ecclesiastical structure of your ministry at this time? It's partnerships. It's a network of partnerships. I mentioned that we have our fundraiser with St. Jude. We raised $12,000, which for a bunch of meme subreddits is not too bad. And, that was ourselves, DankChristianMemes, Wholesome Memes, which was the largest of the group. Judank, who was a friend of ours, as well as the Satanic Temple of Reddit, who decided to join us, and that was very nice and a little unexpected, as well as Pagan Memes and Rami Memes. And if you know people who like Rami movies, they are a bit of a religion over there. So that partnership structure has been important. We're reaching out to Reddit community funds. We're currently requesting them to do donor matching. So we'd love it if when someone from Reddit or anywhere else gives $5 to St. Jude, that Reddit gives another $5 to St. Jude, so people really know that they're making a difference and that they have a partner. I met with a local church the other day, letting them know that we exist and we're happy to be a partner if they're interested in doing outreach. So it's a system of partnerships. There is no hierarchical ecclesiastical structure. I'm trying to look out for new partners as much as I can. Someone wants all my personal information. They can't have it. Sorry. Have you read the book When Narcissism Comes to Church? If so, what are your thoughts on it? What safeguards do you have in place for yourself and others to prevent against the growth of narcissism within the ministry? I think Reddit itself, I have not read the book. It does look like something I should read, though, so thank you. I think in terms of safeguards, first of all, being a digital space and not a physical space means that I think there's fewer opportunities for most kinds of abuse in a digital space. But I would also say that Reddit is high on accountability. Mods do not have good reputations in general, and I get that reputation stuck to me many times. And anything I do or say is voted on. So it is immediately obvious whether or not people agree with or even noticed what I say or what I do. So I think Reddit is very interesting that way. That it holds folks in account. I don't think Reddit is going to get rid of the downvote anytime soon, like YouTube did. When do you get to turn into a real boy? I already did the puberty thing, so I don't understand the nature of the question. And I'm actually going to have to wrap it off here. Guys, do you want to... I'm sorry we didn't get to all your questions. Long Taylor, I know there was a lot more depth to be covered there.
If you do another episode, I'd be glad to join in. And it was great talking to you guys.
So if anyone is interested, please give me a follow. I will definitely pay attention to how many people follow. And if you're interested, I will try to do little office hours like this. I'll drop in and we can chat, you throw questions at me, and yeah. So do give me a follow, or maybe follow our friends here who asked some questions. Thanks for being part of this. And thanks for being here. Check out DankChristianMemes, praise for all sorts of Christians and all sorts of non-Christians. Thanks for being here. Good luck. God bless. Bye-bye.